Hey, welcome to Riding Shotgun with Tupper. This is Tuesday, what's the date? July 24th? That sounds right. I am here, and I say I'm here because I'm not in Chicago. And that's a first ever. I believe that I have not been up at the Big Ten Football Media Day, but, you know, as part of retirement, Joey Wagner's up there for the Decatur paper, and I'm sure doing a great job. And but I watched this morning on the Big Ten Network because I wanted to see Lovie and hear what he had to say. And you know, Lovie, the thing with Lovie, this is year 3, and Lovie says, and everyone agrees, it's time to see some progress. But what no one wants to define from inside the program is how will we measure progress? And that's a fair question. And if I was the head coach, I probably wouldn't want to define it either, because we could see something that is progress, but if it didn't match up number-wise, we would come back to the coach and say, well, you said you were going to win this many and you didn't, so that's failure, right? And he may say no. And so they're more vague. I mean, there shouldn't be any surprise to anybody there, but each of us has to make up our mind what will define progress. And you know, it's going to be different for everyone. I think the simple way to say it, and I think Lovie would probably say it this way, and I kind of agree, is we'll know it when we see it. I think we expect them to win more games. I think we expect them to be more competitive in games. I think we expect to see individual improvement, particularly from those guys who started as freshmen last year. They started 15 different true freshmen and 1 redshirt freshman last year. We know the growing pains that came with that, but the reason you do it is because, well, partly they're your most talented players, but partly so that there'll be a payoff this year when they now know a whole lot more about college football and what it takes to compete and win at this level. And they are bigger, and they are faster, and they are stronger in theory. And Lovie said today that they are bigger and faster and stronger. The thing is, if how do we define progress is the big picture question about the Illinois football program. The tighter question, the more immediate question, will begin revealing itself in training camp, which starts a week from Friday, 3 to 5 p.m. if you're interested in coming, open to the public, about 3 blocks east of Memorial Stadium on Florida/Kirby. And that is the question about who is the starting quarterback. And I think I've said this before, but it's very, very difficult to gauge, to know how to predict the progress that this team will make until we know who the quarterback is. We have no idea what A.J. Bush is, what he looks like, how ready he is for this opportunity. We know he's played not very much, but we know that he's a big, mature athlete who was talented enough to have been at some good schools. Nebraska, one of them. Virginia Tech, one of them. And so we'll see whether his experience proves to give Illinois a better chance to win than Cam Thomas, who has been in the program a lot longer, who had the benefit of playing the entire spring with Rod Smith in the new offense, since he was the only scholarship quarterback in the house. But whose playing time at the college football level is very limited. Played in 4 games, started 2, you know, we'll see. And then who knows what one of these freshmen might do. If one of them rises up, you know, and makes it a more complicated decision, that's fine. What I know, or at least I believe I know, is that they have to have at least 2. Okay, 1 is not going to play every snap. That just doesn't happen. And it certainly didn't last year with Cam Thomas, you know, who got dinged, and concussions are just a reality, and particularly when you're operating a dual threat offense in which your quarterback's going to be expected to make plays with his feet and expose himself to some hits. That's always a possibility. And so they're going to have to come up with at least 2 and have a third one kind of in the wings if something should happen there. But, you know, Lovie didn't have a lot of revealing things. Mikey Dudek is full go health-wise. And he's up there representing Illinois along with Nicky Allegretti and Jamal Milan. And we know Jake Hansen, Lovie confirmed today, is healthy and back. He was slated to start at linebacker last year, got hurt on a day I was up there at training camp, had a serious knee injury, didn't play the season. They really need him. We know Mike Epstein is back. We know Rayvon Bonner is back. I think running back should be a position of strength for this football team, between those guys and Reggie Corbin, who Rod Smith is so high on. So, you know, we're going to get some answers here. The theme question this year, there's always a theme question at Big Ten Media Day. The theme question was really more about gambling, you know, based on the legislation that now gives individual states the opportunity to legalize gambling. More states are going to do that. Right now, the only state in the Big Ten footprint that has legalized gambling is New Jersey, and that would be Rutgers. So, Jim Delaney addressed it yesterday. It sounds like the league is going to mandate a weekly, you can call it an injury report. He calls it an availability report because it would cover more than just injuries. If a player is academically ineligible for a given week, he would be included on the unavailable list. Wow, there goes a deer, a big one. Holy cow, he came flying out of there. Scared the crap out of me. Oh, they're so red this time of year, really pretty. Our farmer has been down here mowing, and I saw him this morning mowing the waterways and mowing the Tupper Trail that we filmed that we do the riding shotgun on, and I'm sure he scared up some deer too. But that one came flying out of there. At any rate, an availability list I think will be mandated from each team weekly to give gamblers the information they seek, and not that they're interested in helping gamblers, but they're interested in eliminating the need for gambling interest people to come around the program seeking that information on their own. They don't want hangers-on around your student managers. Hey, did Mike Epstein practice this week? They don't want players being asked about it. They don't want a dialogue between the gambling world and the athletes and the coaches and the support staff and so forth. And by providing an availability list, they can reduce the chance that happens. And so it seems to be where the league is headed on that. They're going to at least provide that list and then go from there. Two other things. One, I listened to Mark Silverman, the president of the Big Ten Network today, really disturbing information about the dispute that apparently exists between the Big Ten Network and Comcast, the lack of any dialogue to try to resolve that, Comcast basically dropping the Big Ten Network, for lack of a better term. That might not be the best term, but you know, Comcast is not my primary provider. I have Dish, but that's something you're going to need to check in your area and make some decision about, perhaps, if there's not a resolution prior to the start of this season, so that was kind of disturbing. It certainly is a challenge. You remember the difficulties the network had getting acceptance from Comcast initially. They finally did get that done. He says there's no financial advantage to Comcast doing this. So I don't know what their theory is. I don't know. And he did not know, or claimed he did not know. So there's that. Also, Saturday, with Joey Wagner having an obligation to a buddy to be the best man in his wedding, I went over to Champaign to the reunion of the 2007, January 1, 2008 Rose Bowl Illini team. That was really kind of enjoyable. Really, it's the first time I'd seen Ron Zook since he left, and I would say this: Ron Zook looked younger. You know, sometimes when we see those guys on their way out the door, we're seeing them stressed, worn down. In Ron's case, he knew he had an athletic director that pretty much was sharpening the axe since the day he was hired, and you know, Ron looked tanned and fit and rested, and he was probably all of those things because he has a lake home in Florida and loves to water ski, and they'd been down there, and he and Denise were on their way back up through the reunion and then on up to Packers training camp. He's the special teams coordinator for the Packers on special teams. So Ron looked great. I thought the players in general looked great. I mean, I know it hasn't been that long, and those guys are still relatively young, but everybody looked great. Juice Williams has got a couple of little white chin whiskers. I thought they looked good on him. But Rashard Mendenhall looked great and sounded really good. Jay Lehman, you know, I see Jay a lot. He looks and sounds terrific always. Great to see Britt Miller there. He looked and sounded great. And other players too. I didn't see some guys, don't know if they were there, made it or not. I didn't see Aurelius Ben. There were some other guys I didn't see. Of course, I see Martin O'Donnell a lot, and he looks great. But the thing that you notice is those guys give each other bear hugs. Those guys, and it's a celebration of, hey, we accomplished this together. And I wish the current Illinois players had been there to watch it. That's what you do this for. That's why you work all this. You know, that team won 2 games in 05, 2 games in 06, and went to the Rose Bowl in 07. It's not the same situation as Lovie has right now. They had an answer at quarterback in Juice Williams. They had Eddie McGee also, who played some that season. They had probably the best or one of the best running backs in the country in Rashard Mendenhall that year. They had a better blend of old players and young players. Saw Jack Cornell, who was a redshirt freshman on that team. You know, Jack's now the high school football coach up at Quincy Notre Dame. You know, they all talked about how they grew together, Britt in particular, how they grew together early on, how they grew in the weight room, how they became a team that could out-physical Big Ten opponents. I don't think Illinois has been there yet in terms of that. I think they're working to try to get there. And they're a team that had something great happen to it. You know, I know they lost in the Rose Bowl game. I know that score was lopsided, even though the game wasn't really into the third quarter, and then it just completely got away from them at the end. But the camaraderie, the bond that those players have, that's good stuff. That's what you're looking for, and that's what's been missing. You know, this team hasn't had successes to share, successes to celebrate, and the fans as a result have not had that either. So that's the goal. We get started a week from Friday, and it'll be fun. I'll try to watch tonight or this evening, later this afternoon, evening on TV, to see if I can catch the interviews with that the Big Ten Network does with the Illinois players, Nikki Allegretti and Mikey Dudek and Jamal Milan, and be interested to hear what they have to say. But you know, the good stuff starts to happen August 3rd when training camp opens and we get a look at these guys. And you know, the number one wish I think for this team would be to have a healthy training camp. They're still thin enough where they can't afford to have guys go down in training camp, and we'll see if we get any word on what's going to happen with Larry Boyd, who is suspended indefinitely. Whether he's going to remain with the program or not, you know, that depends. Some guys you find out, and I'm not saying this is the case with him, I don't know this, but some guys you find out really want to be pushed to be great, and that's what ends up making them great. Some guys you find out only want to be pushed to be good, and the difference is that they don't want to work quite that hard, they don't want to be pushed quite that hard, and they sometimes seek a school where my superior physical gifts with moderate pushing will be good enough. That'll allow me to continue to play football. In the back of my mind, I can still play professionally. Oftentimes it doesn't work that way because you usually have to be pushed to be great to get that opportunity. And we'll see which side of the fence Larry Boyd comes down on. I don't know. To have the physical skills and gifts that he's been handed, if he could accept being pushed to be great and to do all of the other things that come with that, many of them off the field, would seem to be a wonderful opportunity, because that guy could set himself up for the rest of his life. He could be wealthy, and you know, I mean, it's easy to say it looking from the outside, but man, I wish he felt that way and would commit to it. I think there's still time to do it, but it's probably starting to slip away if he doesn't snap to it. So we'll watch for that as well. Thanks everybody for riding along. I wish I had a front-facing camera so you could have seen the deer today. He was pretty cool. And thank you very much. We will be with you again next Tuesday, which will be the final riding shotgun prior to the start of training camp. I'm going to go over that Friday. If any of you are around and at camp, come up and say hi. Love to say hi to you. Hear what's on your mind. Maybe we can watch a little of the camp together. I mean, it's so informal, and but I'm going to pay attention. I want to see what's going on as we start to sift through this roster and get a look at some of these incoming freshmen. Who's who? Where they're lining up? How do they look? Are they in shape? Are they out of shape? What, you know, all that stuff. Looking forward to that. Thanks for riding along today. We'll talk to you later.